Hi, today is a yin practice. If you have a block or two, it could be really helpful today. In fact, our first pose, I'm going to ask you to place your head on a block. And if you don't have a block, what you could do is take a couple of thick books and that are about the size of a block, stack them up. And then if you wanted to put something soft on top, like a washcloth or something, you can. Because like I said, we're going to put our head on top of the block. Um, Really quickly here, I just want to run through the three main elements of a yin practice. Last week, I know our practice just kind of disappeared into thin air in the middle of the day, so I realize you may not have gotten a chance to complete our week one yet. So because of that, let me just explain real quickly here what yin is all about. There's three elements. The first one is finding your appropriate edge of a pose. And we'll call that a soft edge rather than a hard or rigid edge. So we're going to go into a deep stretch, but we don't want to go to our maximum stretch capacity right away. We actually only want to go about maybe 40%, 50% of the way there. Um, and it'll make a little bit more sense why when we talk about some of the other elements. So, secondly, is stillness. So, once you find your appropriate spot, your appropriate edge, we settle into a still place. And while we're still, we want to be able to relax as much as possible. So, yin targets the deeper tissues of the body, the fascia, the ligaments, the bones. And if we're tense or super engaged, then the muscle is going to take the subtle stress that we're putting on the body. And we don't want that to happen. So we want that subtle stress to reach into the deeper tissues to stimulate our healing response. So we will certainly be challenged in a yin practice, but we want to be able to remain relaxed within the challenge. And we want to be able to differentiate between challenge and pain. Challenge and a little bit of discomfort is okay. Pain is not okay. Finally, the third element is time. So once you've found your appropriate edge and you've settled into a still spot, we let time and gravity take over. And that's how we find our depth. So rather than forcing ourselves into our deepest expression right away, we just let time and gravity take over to kind of settle into the most appropriate depth. There's something that happens after about 90 seconds in a pose. It's called a phase change. There's a lengthening and a softening of the connective tissues, and we're able to settle in to a little bit more ease. So I know that's a lot. I know I've been talking a lot. Let's go ahead and get into the practice now. So we're going to start today in melting heart pose. So we'll come to our hands and knees, and you'll want one block, or again, that stack of books there, ready to receive the weight of your head. So knees are beneath the hips. We'll then come down to the forearms, and we're going to let our head rest on our block. And you can change the height of the block so that it's most comfortable there for your head and neck. And you can reach your arms a little bit further forward. I encourage you, though, to keep your elbows and your forearms down against the support of the ground so that we can relax and we're not putting forth too much muscular effort through the upper body. So this pose is going to kind of target the middle and upper back and kind of up and underneath the arms and into the shoulders a bit. It's also a place where we can let our belly just kind of hang out and relax. So you may be noticing some sensation there at the low belly and around the hips as well. So we've found our spot. We're welcoming stillness, and now we're just going to spend some time here. In today's practice, I'm going to sprinkle in some techniques that help to stimulate our vagus nerve. It's actually two nerves. It's our 10th and 12th cranial nerves. There's one on the right side and one on the left side. When we stimulate these longest and largest cranial nerves in the body, it has a direct pathway to our parasympathetic response, which is our calming mechanism. It's our rest and digest. So one of the ways that we can further stimulate the vagus nerve is through head and scalp massage and gentle pressure at the third eye. So that's that space right between your brows. It's the seat of the sixth chakra, the seat of intuition and internal wisdom. So right now, with our head placed as it is, we're already welcoming that gentle pressure there. And if you want a little bit more, what you could do is start to just slowly kind of turn your head side to side, like a slow nodding of no, and just bringing in a little bit more of a forehead massage. Stimulating some acupressure points through the forehead that will help continue just to calm us down and bring us deeper into this moment. All the while we're maintaining that yin posture, anahata, melting heart. Good, and then we'll come back to the center and then just again let gravity take over here. Feel the weight of your head against your block. Feel the weight of your knees and feet against your mat and the weight of your arms and hands being supported by the sturdy earth underneath of you. Let's take one more breath here. And a nice deep exhale. Good, and then we'll slowly start to lift ourselves up off of that block. I've got a visitor here. And you can move your block out of the way. Let's take just a couple rounds here of cat and cow. Noticing how you feel through your spine and through your back, around your heart. Our next pose is our Sphinx pose. So we can walk our hands a little bit further forward, and we're going to lower down onto the hips and then onto the belly. And then we'll take the hands out in front and the forearms in front, and we're going to line up our elbows now beneath the shoulders. Now there is a little bit of effort here as we press into the forearms and we lift the heart up, so we're starting to stretch the belly. We're lifting up through the crown of the head. We're trying to drop down through the shoulders. So this is Sphinx pose. It's a gentle back bend. If it ever gets to be too much, you can lower down into relaxed crocodile, where you would fan your elbows out, stack your hands, and rest your head on top. So this is spinal extension. This is nourishment for the spine. And we're stretching the tissue through the front body and the belly and up and into the chest and even into the throat. And we'll feel the weight of our front body here against the mat, and we're going to start to think about our breath and feel our breath. And another way that we can stimulate our vagus nerve is to come into some deep diaphragmatic belly breathing. So with your next inhale, see if you can find that belly swelling and expanding towards and against your mat. And then with the exhale, feel yourself just kind of emptying out that air from the depths of the belly, the depths of the lungs. And then just continue breathing this way, letting that breath travel in very deep. Feel the expansion, feel the belly press. And then feel the release. With the exhale, we can also be dissolving some of the unnecessary tension and grip that we may be finding through the jaw, around the shoulders or the neck or the face, even down in the feet. Can your feet relax and let the ground just receive the weight, not only of your feet, but of your legs and of your pelvis? Now you can stay here in your Sphinx pose. If you would like to experience just a little bit more depth, you'll take your hands out just a little wider, peel the elbows and the forearms off of the floor, and you would come into seal. And we're not going to stay here very long, and we're not going to force this if it doesn't feel right, safe, appropriate for our body today. Let's take a breath in. And as you exhale, feel your spine melting back down to the mat. So we do that a lot of times in bridge pose when we come out of the pose, but let's do it from the front body now as we melt back down. And now we'll stack the hands, we'll rest the forehead and relax the shoulders completely. This is relaxed crocodile, and this is just kind of our rebound pose. We're not going to stay too long, but we're going to stay long enough to find that deep belly breath again. Feel the belly press against the mat as you breathe into the depths. You expand, and then we release, and we empty out, we collapse. It could feel nice here to pick up the feet and roll the ankles a few times. It might also feel nice just to windshield wiper those legs a couple of times. Good. Let's bring the legs back to the center. We'll lay them down, and then we'll slide the hands in beneath the shoulders as we push ourselves up. And we'll come up through the tabletop. Let's take a cat pose stretch here just to counter that big back bend we just spent a good amount of time in. Nice. And now we'll swing around. We're going to come into a seated position next. It's our butterfly. So the soles of the feet will come together. And for this pose, blocks could be helpful. You could slide a block under each leg if you want a little support there. Or if you feel especially tight in the hips today, you could put 2 blocks side by side and sit on top to elevate the pelvis. That sometimes makes it a little easier to sit tall. So the feet come in as close as they can comfortably, and then we hold on to the feet or maybe the shins or the ankles. We'll encourage the knees down while we lift up through the top of the head. With an exhale breath, we'll slide the shoulder blades a little further down the back and drop the shoulders a little further away from the ears. And to start, we're just going to stay in this upright long spine position. And we'll really settle into the stillness of the lower half, but we are going to bring in a little bit of movement up top, because another thing that helps to stimulate the vagus nerve is some neck circles and neck release. So let's take the right ear over to the right shoulder, leave it over there long enough to feel the left side of the neck opening up. And then we'll bring the chin down to the chest here and really lengthen and stretch the back of the neck. We'll then roll the left ear over to the left shoulder, pause. And then we'll bring the chin back down to the chest. Now you could continue this a time or two side to side, just moving slowly and fluidly, rolling through the neck and releasing any grip or tension that you're finding along the way. The neck and the hips are actually energetically connected, and it's the 2 places in the body that hold the most sensory receptors in the muscles and tissues around the neck and the hips. It's a place where we hold stress. So sometimes there's plenty of things to find there, and this movement just helps us kind of release some of those things that we might be finding. Could feel nice to also just lift the head and maybe tick-tock it or even roll it back if it feels okay, or turn. You can see how you're doing around the jaw and the mouth. Let's come back to a still spot and feel the head just sitting perfectly on top of the rest of the spine, almost like a puppet string that lifts you up and out through the crown. Good. We'll take a breath in here, and we're just going to add a subtle change. We'll hinge forward. So we're going to keep the spine just as long, but we're going to lean forward at the hips. So it might only be an inch or 2. See how it feels. Take a deep breath in, and with the exhale, settle in, dissolve. Welcome the depth. Good. With the inhale, let's come back up, right. And then with the exhale, we'll just relax. We'll pull the knees together. Let's open up the feet a little bit. And let's take a few of our seated windshield wiper sways here side to side. See how you're doing around the low back. See how you're doing around the hips. So our next pose is caterpillar. So it's our seated forward fold. This is another one that it could be especially helpful to sit on top of two blocks and kind of help tilt the pelvis forward a little bit. If your hamstrings are super tight, you can bend your knees as much as you need to. We're going to inhale and lift high. And then with our exhale, we'll just lay our torso forward now over the legs. We can take hold, but let's be mindful not to yank or grip or pull too intensely into the pose. Again, as we exhale, we want to remind ourselves that it's gravity, it's time that takes over to find the depth. This pose is a wonderful stretch for the entire back body, the posterior chain that runs from the soles of the feet, up through the back of the legs, behind the knee, into the hamstrings and across the back, all the way up the skinny muscles along the spine, into the back of the neck to the crown of the head. It's the posterior line of fascia of connective tissue. We are all interconnected here. In addition to the deep diaphragmatic belly breathing, our Ujjayi breath helps to stimulate the vagus nerve even more. So there's that gentle rattling, that vibration that happens at the back of the throat, at the glottis. We did this one a few days ago. It's the ocean's breath, the whisper's breath. It's that breath where we imagine that we're going to fog up our mirror on our exhale. We hear the breath and we feel the breath. And it calms us down. It links us deeply into this moment and helps us let go of everything outside of the moment. As the mind wanders, just bring it back to the breath, bring it back to what you are experiencing right now in the body. See if you can recognize a phase change. See if you can soften into this stretch. If it feels entirely challenging and the mind is racing and you're wondering when the heck you get to come out, maybe just ease out a little bit. See if you can't enjoy it a little bit more. Let's take one more breath. And then we'll slowly come up and out, restack the spine. Good, we're going to come on to our backs now. Once we get there, we'll hug the knees to the chest. So we're going to take a twist and come into a yin pose called cat pulling its tail. So we start by taking the right ankle and we're going to cross it over the left knee. And then we'll kind of turn onto that left hip and we'll bring the cross legs over the body. This could be your pose here, and what we add on from here is optional. You could take your left hand and place it gently on top of the left knee. You could then take your right hand and see if that right foot is available to take hold. So the hand reaches down and just takes hold of the toes, the top of the foot. We then shimmy the shoulders down against the mat and turn the head over to the right. We could close our eyes, relax our jaw. Feel the gentle pressure of both hands against knee and foot, just encouraging a grounding effect here as we notice, again, that sturdy earth underneath of us holding us up. Pay attention to the breath. Let it be deep. Maybe it's vibrational. Feel the neck. Try to relax it. As we recognize what we're experiencing in the belly. So again, with the bigger breathing inside of the twist, maybe you really notice some sensations there in the belly, and we just think about the connection between the belly, the gut, and the brain. We think about the connection between the mind and the body. And we're just thinking about opening up the pathway of communication so that the information, the energy can flow more freely. Let's make one last little change here before we come out of the pose. We're going to remove that left hand from the knee. And just for a moment, we'll turn the head back to the center. And we're going to actually kind of lift that right knee up towards the ceiling and put the sole of the right foot on the ground. Good. We'll then let go of that foot that we're holding on to. And then just bring the legs back to the center. Let's uncross the legs. Take a few windshield wipers here. This is now the third position that we've done our windshield wipers in. Good. And then we'll get that pose to the other side. So we're going to cross the left ankle over the right knee. We're going to lift and kind of shift and turn onto that right hip as we let the legs pull over the body. And then we can place the right hand on top of that left knee, and then the left hand can reach down and find the right foot. That's optional, of course. If the foot seems a little too far away, we're not going to force the hold. We can turn our head then, though, over to the left side. We let the stillness and the silence be part of this meditative practice, which is so good for us. It's so good for our vagal tone. It's so good for our ability to remain calm during a life that can be pretty stressful. It's the things we practice on our mat that help us use more efficiently when we're off the mat as well. Let's bring the head back to the center and then just remove the right hand from that left knee. See if you can let the sole of that left foot rest on the ground like you were going to stand on it while that knee lifts up a bit. It just changes the pose just a little bit. You might experience a slightly different sensation. So just notice what you're feeling, what you're finding. And then we can let go of that foot if we took hold, kind of uncross here and bring ourselves back to the center. And we'll just finish up with a few more windshield wipers. The pinnacle pose of a yin practice is Shavasana, and it is actually called the pinnacle in yin. So let's just extend the legs, shift so that you're nice and balanced on the back of the body. Maybe turn the palms up and let the fingertips curl in naturally. We can close our eyes and relax our face and just become very heavy through the bones, nice and light through the muscles. And continue just to become an observer of your breath, allowing the breath and the body to be enough in these last few quiet moments of the practice. Stay here as long as you are able. Thank you for joining me today. Namaste.